Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo bringing you another video talking about survivability in Star Trek Online. And today I'll be talking about disruptors. As some of you might know, I have 6 different characters for the 6 different general energy types in the game. And my KDF-Romulan is the one that does disruptors, and so that's what it'll be today. Per the request of James Judy, from these past couple days, I will be covering the 4.4 version of disruptors. I typically personally prefer 5.3 configurations with 5 in the front and 3 in the back, but especially with this particular ship right here, this is what I would say is probably one of the better, if not the best ones for tanking in general. So let's go ahead and get started with this. First thing, Terran Task Force Disruptor Beam Array. It's basically the best disruptor beam array in the game. Some might say it's the best beam in the entire game. That's too big. There are lots of other ones of different energy types that are very good for DPS and such. This one's very strong. It's from Terran Task Force. Reputation, you get it to tier 4, and you're able to get this weapon. Very good. There's also a cannon version. For those of you that want to do cannons in the front and turrets in the back, there's also a cannon version for this as well. Especially for tanks, another thing to add is the Nausicaan 3-piece set with the science console, as well as a torpedo and a disruptor beam array. This is from one of the more recent expansions from the New Frontiers arc. Very first mission there, called Echoes of Light. This mission is exceptionally good for disruptors. You're able to get basically fill up your tactical slots with disruptor induction coils. Very rare versions. Until you really get fleet versions, there's not really ones that are much better. And also getting the whole 3-piece here. Basically, unless you're going for a cannon type build, I would say this is a must-have 3-piece to have on your ship. The reason is because, well, first off, the science console gives you disruptor damage, as well as power transfer rate, which inherently increases your DPS, as well as the 3-piece bonus also gives you more disruptor damage. It's not showing the proper amount here. Up in space, it's over 20%. I'm on ground because I'll be showing you some stuff on the exchange to replace these consoles in here if you aren't able to get the high tier versions. Also of note is that this disruptor torpedo does do disruptor damage, and it's an energy damage torpedo. So that means that it's still going to do full damage versus shields as well as the hull. Most torpedoes in the game will do kinetic damage, which means that they only do a quarter of the damage that they are listed to shields, and double the damage versus the hull. Energy torpedoes do full damage to both shields and hull. So, in my opinion, that means that this is a torpedo that's inherently going to be like a normal energy weapon. So, except that it has a narrower arc. So, just something to think about. This is just kind of like a generic disruptor. It's just because it's part of the 3-piece set. It's why I have it. I also have the 2-piece Martok set from the mission where you rescue him in that same arc. Yeah, Brushfire right here. So you get the engineering console straight from the mission, and then you can select the 360 disruptor energy weapon from that mission as well. Transphasic torpedoes suck inside the game, so just avoid them at like all costs. This console is extremely good, especially with things that are scaling now. It gives you a lot more hit points, more shield capacity, as well as it gives you a lot more turn rate. So especially if you're in a ship like this one where you have to broadside because you're a 4-4 ship. turn rate allows you to get inside those 70-degree arcs, 70 like 70 on the sides of your ship, instead of like the full 250 that a 5.3 ship would be able to give you. The reason why you get the 360 weapon is simply just for this stuff right here. And the reason why I've always said for a long time for Disruptor damage this is a must-have is because accuracy is one of the stats that's really hard to stack on your ship. Before this recent expansion, this was like one of, if not the highest thing in the game that gave you the most accuracy for your buck. It was like this one and the one from the Shenzhou. There is a new console though that has been released with this recent expansion that is actually really cheap on the exchange. It's called Hostile Acquisition, and I said in my last video, this has replaced one of my lobby consoles that I've been using for years in the game. I can find it here. Yeah, it's basically replaced this one inside the game just about entirely because it gives me my control expertise that I'm wanting. And I lose a little bit of like my flight turn rate for the extra accuracy and the clicky ability, which is basically a forced taunt in PvE tanking. And taunts are really rare to find in Star Trek Online. So the fact that this is a really cheap console right now, it gives me control expertise and it gives me accuracy. Like in my personal view for how much this is worth, this is easily worth 3 million credits. And Hostile Acquisition on the exchange right now is going for well under that. Like we're going 400,000 credits. Like earlier today, I saw one selling for 100,000 credits. I think it's really that a lot of people don't value this console highly because this is a console that's very valuable in PvP as well as in PvE tanking. And in those two demographics, it's not necessarily a very large portion of the player base. So I guess in a sense it makes sense as to why it's not selling that well. But it is a very strong console. So definitely go ahead and get that. Especially on this ship as well because we are using the engineering version of the Command Battlecruiser, we only have 3 tactical consoles. So it's really valuable to have something to kind of like supplement that to allow you to have a basically 4th console. For disruptors, phasers, and plasma weapons, getting the 2-piece version from whatever synergistic retrofitting from that one is really valuable. In most of my builds, I will include the DPRM console just because it gives me the passive damage resist, plus it has a really strong clicky. And then also like the 2-piece with whatever second one that's cheaper faction. Just allow to have that clicky. For Klingons, it's the secondary shield projector. For Romulans, it's the disruption pulse emitter, which in my opinion is a bit better for tanks actually. But yeah, I'll try to make this as close to the Klingon one as I possibly could for this. You know, this is really expensive for Romulans, as this is a Romulan captain. So yeah, for my other energy weapons on here, I prefer to use integrity linked disruptor beam arrays. And that's because with one of the recent revamps in like a couple of like mini seasons ago, the proc rates for energy weapons went from like actual times that the weapon was shooting to a proc per cycle per weapon. So like the amount of times that this thing could actually proc went down substantially, to the point that for a lot of guys in DPS, like a lot of them have gone almost exclusively to the linked weapons. Most of them like the sensor linked versions, just because it gives them more critical severity. Let's see here, yeah, because it gives a little bit of defense and crit severity. It's still not very much. You're basically getting that passive stuff instead of a proc on the energy weapon. So, like in terms of stuff for me, I personally prefer getting more hit points and passive hull regeneration rather than the other stuff. Because just for me personally, for the stats that I want as a tank, this gives me the most bang for my buck personally. For phasers, I use something else, but that's just personal preference because of how the phasers look. But for disruptors, I go slightly against the meta, and this is what I use personally. For my deflectors and stuff here, I do use the Kabali 4-piece set. I've been using it for a while. It still works strong. With a lot of stuff that it's changed in Victory is Life, there are sets which, in many situations, actually are superior to this 4-piece set. I just haven't had the chance to actually to get the resources to replace a lot of the Kabali sets on a lot of my beam characters. And I would actually say overall, as I've started experimenting with stuff more and more, actually the Lucaria 4-piece set, in many instances, is much better and superior. Because not only does the Lucaria have the strong defensive capabilities that the Kabali has, but you also have some offensive capability with the Warp Core. Being able to, with the 4 pieces, to significantly reduce the shield resistance of an enemy for a few seconds whenever you activate the thing. And it's on a 2-minute cooldown with the 4-piece bonus as well. So it is very powerful. Plus everything in here basically allows you to have more hull regen and resistance to things that you would normally have, like radiation. The Lucaria reputation is really strong. The ground gear is also exceptionally strong, as I've been exploring and finding out. I've been exploring a lot of other things inside the game. I'll be covering that in later videos too, as I get the resources and level things up better. But yeah, the Kabali 4 pieces is what I still use on most of my characters still at the moment. Just because the 4 pieces still gives you a lot of decently good stuff too. A couple of clicky abilities that are very strong. Plus, passive hull regen is also super nice too. Even the Kabali 3-piece is still good as well. At this point, with the way that scaling is inside the game, even the Kabali 3-piece without the Warp Core, is still a little bit better now than the Iconium War one, just because the Iconium War one has like a variant shield, and having that regenerative shield is exceptionally important now. The only time in which it's okay to not have a regenerative shield is if you go Miracle Worker Command. If you go Miracle Worker with the bonus hull regen based upon the max hull, plus Command with maximum hull capacity, you can get greedy and get away with stuff that's not a regenerative shield. Which, if you do go that route, I would say just go all out and do all damage and get the Iconium 4-piece. And just go that route. And I have tested it. It does work extremely well. Still. Even though it's not even a regenerative shield, it still works very well. Okay. Now for that. So let's go ahead and get down here for consoles. For devices, it's still Turbo Negotiator, Remark Capacitor. It would also be the one from Spectres, the skirmish mission. For this Romulan character, this whole arc is super buggy to the point that I for over a year now, since I started this character last fall, I have not been able to complete any of the missions in this arc. So I haven't actually been able to get this awesome device to add to my ship. It's really weird. I've asked Crypts about it, and they've just been silent on me. They've responded to me about a lot of my other concerns. They haven't responded to me at all the couple times I've asked them about that issue. But anyway, so I don't have that device, sadly. I would really like that device, but I just don't have it. For my consoles, I have 3 Disruptor coils. For the KDF fleet, right now we don't have the capabilities to get the one with critical chance, otherwise that's the one I would have here. For science consoles, obviously this part is from the 3-piece setup there. This is from the 2-piece, and these two are the two cheap ones for Klingons. Hostile acquisition I've already talked about. Binaural infusion circuits is a lobby console. A one that's really close to this one is from Task Force Omega. In fact, there's a lot of builds at times that I'll still exchange it with this one, and it's the assimilated console. It gives me also some additional crit chance, crit severity, and it gives me control expertise and additional passive hull regen. So instead of having, for lack of a better word, a super high amount of critical chance and hull capacity, instead I'm getting a little bit lower crit severity in exchange for a little bit of crit chance and hull regen. In the super grand scheme of things, they're relatively comparable. I just prefer this one over the assimilated console. Plus, also the assimilated console adds some looks to your ship that you can't get rid of. Unfortunate, but just the way it is. I also have this console, which is from the Lucari ship. It was like a couple years ago when that ship came out. If you weren't able to get it, this is a console on the exchange that's not necessarily as good, but it is comparable in terms of its stats and it's activatable. It's called shared process integration. This is a type of ability that these Zenkethi use a whole bunch on a lot of their ships. That's why it sucks trying to take them down, because they spam this a whole bunch. It has a bit of hull regen and shield capacity, as well as its activated gives you a little bit of damage resistance and a little bit of healing. It's really this healing is why I really like this console. And this is one that you can use on any ship in the game. Still, the Lucari console is quite a bit superior. And almost any time that I'm flying, whether it's PvE, PvP, whatever, when I activate this console, I basically can't die while this thing's going on, which is super nice. Because it's not only a hull regen, but it's also a shield regen during that time too. So it is very strong. I also use the Plasmonic Leech. For Klingons, this does cost a little bit to get. You have to get the Vandal Destroyer. If you aren't a Klingon character, like if you're a Romulan character, or if you are a Federation character, then it is a whole lot cheaper. Here we'll just literally just grab this thing off the exchange, and you literally just get the one to your faction. For Klingons and for Romulans, it's based on whatever one that you allied with. Dominion characters are literally treated just as the civilization that they've allied with, whether that's KDF or whether that's Federation. So keep that in mind whenever you're with whichever one that you ally with. Trying to see if there's anything else on this ship that's noteworthy to mention. There are hangar pets on him, but I don't use them. Well, I spam hangar pets, but I don't really care about hangar pets at all. For skills in space, as I mentioned before, for engineering captains, you'll want to get the shield pen version of the one that I've put out before. For tactical captains, it's hull pen. For my particular ship, because I actually normally command a different ship that has really high hull and shields, I actually put a second point in damage control and shield regeneration just to capitalize on the fact that my ship would have a lot of hull and shields. But beyond that, there really isn't any difference in any of this stuff here. And this stuff applies to tactical, which I believe James said that he was a Klingon or a an engineering character, so this doesn't apply as much to him. Just another thing to mention, I made Proto Matter's circuitry extremely strong. It's in tier 4 of Lucari. It's one of basically the must-have tanking traits in the game now, just because PvE enemies are critting a lot and critting for a huge amount of damage now. So this is actually a really reliable way of getting hull and shield regeneration in the game at the moment. Anything else? Oh, that's right. When James was talking about his build, he was talking about that he used the 2-piece from the Omega. So I'll talk a bit about why I don't use that. Again, this is a 2.5% chance, which means this is basically the same as basically adding a proc to your weapons. Again, this is a proc per cycle, not proc per time that the weapon is shot. So this is going to be a lot more infrequent than what you would probably expect it to be. And also, especially Judy, because you're, I believe you said you were an engineer. As an engineer, you already have 2 abilities that basically give you what you're wanting from this proc anyway. And you can basically like choose those and have that going at the most optimal times for you. This is a little bit less optimal because like this is just randomly goes off and it's just for 5 seconds. And you're like, oh cool, I guess there's a weapon power and my weapons don't cost anything. Yeah, it's really not as good as you would think. Like it's like, and then another Omni's nice, but then again, as a 4-4 ship, the goal is for you to use a broadside. The goal is so that whenever you're firing, that you're in like this 70-degree arc here, and you're in this 70-degree arc whenever you're firing your weapons. You're not really gonna like, and because you're doing that, you shouldn't really need to worry about having lots of omnidirectional or 360 weapons in the back, just because you have 4 and 4, so there's really no way to have a full Austin 250 arc build with a 4-4 ship. It's still an awesome, nice ship. Just that it has some glaring weaknesses. This is a build that when I was playing around for a little bit, this is what felt good to me. It still could be adjusted. Like I could probably put versatility 3 here. However, since I've been neglecting this character for so long, she actually has like no experience points to actually or experience points to actually train my bridge officers or anything, and so I was kind of rather limited in terms of things that I could actually do with her. So yeah, I've got torpedo spread as well as being fired well. I need torpedo spread for the Noskin torpedoes actually to do anything. Otherwise, it's literally just a slot there just for the extra disruptor damage. I use attack pattern Delta because having attack pattern Delta allows me to have additional threat generation with these particular duty officers. For Klingon, the Klingon versions cost a whole lot more than the Federation ones do. The Federation ones can typically go around between 4 and 6 million whenever they're on the exchange. Klingon ones are typically around 12 to 15 million. The fair price ones. And so being able to get multiple of them, it does take a bit of a chore and looking on the exchange a couple times a week in order to find them, whenever they actually are there. Okay, I think that it is about everything. For those of you that are watching, subscribe, whatever. If you like these videos, feel free to like them, share them, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. If you don't like the video, feel free to dislike them and just let me know, whether in the comments or to my email, so I can improve the videos for those who still want to watch stuff on my channel. I guess I'll just beam out just so you can see the raw stats on the ship, and then we'll go ahead and close out for now. Raw stats on the ship itself. Obviously, these aren't upgraded to Mark 15 yet. This character is super neglected. She was able to get through the recent expansion in the Gamma Quadrant stuff just fine with Mark 14 though for her actual main ship. Yeah, that's about everything for now. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.